Mark, I wanted to have you on because there's so much that you addressed in a brief email to me about what you want to do for not only the state, but your country as a potential member of the next U.S. Senate. Number one, so people can get to know Mark Paquita, what is Mark all about?
Well, what I'm all about is bringing sound business management principles to Washington to fix the mess we've got there. And I believe, Carmen, that the main reason we've got such a mess is the corruption that we see that's endemic in government, and particularly in Ohio, the Ohio Republican Party. So I want to bring what I would call a level of honesty and transparency back to our party and back to Washington, because we've got to be honest with ourselves. If you look at what's happening in Washington right now, we're printing money like Venezuela, which is monetizing the debt, causing people's 401ks to become worthless. So we're forced to become more dependent on the government. And I just believe in smaller government, getting back to the Constitution. I lived the American dream, sold a business at the end of 2019, didn't like what Rob Portman was doing, and decided to take action myself because I could. I was financially independent, and I had time freedom, which is hard for many people. A lot of people would like to run, but they don't have the financial wherewithal or the time. So that's me. I'm just a regular guy, just like everybody else. I didn't go to an Ivy League school. I'm not a career politician. I'm just like everybody else. Came from a lower middle class family.
Now, what part of the state are you from? Also, are you financing your entire campaign?
I am from Dublin, northwest suburb of Columbus, and I am financing most of my campaign, although we're seeing contributions pick up. But we're not going to try to compete based on financing. We're just not. I think money in politics is what has ruined it, and we've got to start electing people who don't have PAC money, who aren't buying an election. So, yeah, most of it's coming from me.
Now, Mark, you just made a very bold statement. You basically took on the Ohio Republican Party in your opening comments to me. That's kind of brave.
Well, we've got a mantra in our campaign, Carmen, that's leave it better than we found it, meaning leave Ohio better than we found it. And we've been helping fix education in Ohio. But the second piece is reforming the Ohio Republican Party and cleaning it up. I am doing that to show Ohioans how much of a fighter I am and how I fight. I'm not fighting for my career as a politician. I'm fighting to save the country, fix the Ohio Republican Party, and fix Ohio. So I'm the only candidate that will say things like the Ohio Republican Party is corrupt and needs to be fixed. Mike DeWine has been a failure and needs to be investigated, not reelected. And Rob Portman has been a failure as a senator. I'm the only one who will say it. It has put a target on my back with the Ohio Republican Party. But that's okay, because if you can't fight the Ohio Republican Party and you can't fight Mike DeWine here in Ohio, how the heck can you be expected to fight the swamp, the deep state, big tech, and socialist Democrats in Washington?
Well, you mentioned the swamp, and what did Donald John Trump say several years ago? It's time to drain the swamp. That so-called swamp on both sides of the aisle,
absolutely,
they do not want your type in D.C., correct?
No, they absolutely do not want my type in D.C. And it's why I tell people at my events that they have to look not only for someone like me, a citizen candidate in Ohio, but they've got to look for and support both vocally and monetarily other citizen candidates around the country. Because if we can get an America First caucus of 15 to 25 people like me in D.C. across both houses, both chambers, we can make the change required quickly. Look at what 5 relatively unintelligent loudmouths did to the Democrat Party. I mean, do you think that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer want to be as far left as they are right now?
Well, I don't know if the squad and Schumer and Pelosi are dining on a nightly basis, but Mark, when you look at those newcomers a couple of years ago that make up the squad, realistically, what do you think your chances are to be successful here?
I think my chances are right now, because of the mood in the country and the state, are as good as anybody's. Am I a long shot candidate because of the money issues and the name recognition issues? Absolutely. But over the weekend, I was getting picked on by some of Josh Mandel's surrogates on social media and by some of Bernie Moreno's surrogates. So clearly, there is a level of fear there about someone who's speaking the truth rather trying to go along to get along.
Let me ask you a couple questions that pertain to citizens of this great state of Ohio. What would Mark Paquita do to try and bring manufacturing back to our state? What would Mark Paquita do to lower taxes, especially for those, say, that are elderly and have to decide whether they buy food, medicine, or pay their property taxes?
Right. So, Carmen, that's a great question. I've got a 21-point policy guide. So if people go to my website, it's mark4ohio.com, mark4ohio.com/policy. They'll see my policies on those issues and 19 more. In terms of bringing manufacturing back, we've got to do things like level the playing fields with people who've got other countries that have unfair advantages against us, like China. We've got to get rid of specious regulations that are hamstringing American businesses. We've got to change tax policy so we have a tax policy that's favorable to corporations to bring profits and bring manufacturing back to the United States. We've got to fight crony capitalism that protects insiders from competition, things of that nature, because Donald Trump showed that you can bring manufacturing back. He started to do it. That caused wage increases for the first time in a few decades, especially in the middle class, especially with people of color, women, Asian Americans, Latino Americans. And I think the Democrat Party was scared to death about that because the Democrat Party has abdicated responsibility for helping or being friendly to the middle class, right? They're a party of people who are on entitlement programs and people who are in the finance sector in New York and the tech sector on the West Coast.
Let me switch gears here and let's discuss the topic of immigration and or illegal immigration and everything that's flowing across the southern border. What is your approach to stop it, to say, hey, we've had enough? These people aren't being vetted. They're coming across freely, almost being invited by the current administration, Mark.
Yeah, that's really quite simple. We need to control our borders. We need to finish the wall. And we need to stop illegal immigration. We need to give the Border Patrol the power to do what they did during Trump's administration. He had illegal immigration down to about 16,000 people a month with the Border Patrol. No military or anybody like that. Now we're over 200,000. That is an issue of policy. That is not an issue of capability. On top of that, we've got to get a little creative. We've got to get back to this melting pot mindset where we all come together, improve on the great ideas from all cultures that come here, but they come here legally. We've got to have an America First immigration policy that's merit-based, that brings the best and brightest here. For example, why aren't we trying to recruit the best and brightest from Australia right now and get them out of that absolute tyranny they're living in, right? So bring a bunch of highly educated, entrepreneurial Australians here, right? They should be able to claim asylum for what's going on there. And then on top of that, we need to fight Southern Hemisphere corruption. The lawlessness there, the corruption there is the root cause of illegal immigration, and we need to make it tougher for them to do their despotism, exact their tyranny on people without nation building, though. I think we can do it with things like economic sanctions, pressure with other well-run countries in the region, things of that nature.
How bad is it when Governor Greg Abbott in Texas says, hey, it's now incumbent upon me to build a wall to keep up my state safe, as the administration obviously halted construction of that wall once 46 took office?
It's absurd. I mean, it's just absurd. The things we're living with right now, you've probably seen the movie or heard the movie Idiocracy. You know, that's now, I heard the either the screenwriter for that or the producer said that no longer is a comedy. That's a documentary. And these things are absurd. Common sense has just gone out the window. We need to get back to common sense, critical thinking. And I know that I sometimes sound like I'm complaining, but I really do believe that God is not finished with the United States. We have our best days are ahead of us. Hard times make for strong men, and I think we're going through some of those hard times, and we're going to come out of this much better off, and we're not going to fall for this again. We can never fall for this kind of thing again, including COVID.
Can we get our country back, Mark? I mean, we elected a businessman in Donald John Trump. Obviously, the vote, quote unquote, didn't go his way. Joe Biden's in office. And I said at the time, leading up to that vote, that, in my opinion, this was a clear choice between capitalism versus communism. Are we headed that way?
I refuse to say that America is going in that direction. Listen, we sent a man to the moon. We need to have more of a project mentality. We just need to decide we're going to do it, like we did with going to the moon, like we did with the interstate highway system. There was a goal, there was a time frame, and we got it done. We just need to fix things here, including reducing spending and things of that nature. But listen, we're America. We can do whatever we set our mind to. Whatever we set our mind to. And people who use this excuse, well, we've been doing it that way a long time. Well, if it's been wrong, we should stop doing it. People also use the excuse, well, it's too big of a problem to fix. My response to that is we're Americans. We can do anything, and that's what we need to do. I refuse to give up. I will fight with every last cell of my being to keep socialism and communism from happening here.
Mark, we got about 90 seconds left, but the country continues to print money. Inflation continues to soar. When does the Fed step in and say, hey, enough's enough?
Well, I think voters need to step in and say enough's enough. The Fed hasn't always made the right decisions, and we need to. Here's what we need to do. We need to spend 10 times more time and energy talking about reducing spending than we do about monetary or tax policy. We get, even Republicans get this, there's this shiny object called taxes, reducing taxes. And Rob Portman's an example. At the same time he talks about reducing taxes, he's signing on to the bipartisan, quote unquote, bipartisan infrastructure bill that's putting us into more debt. We have got to be honest. We have got to cut to the chase and decide that we're going to take every means necessary to reduce our spending at the federal level so we don't have to argue as much about tax policy. But I'm also for fair tax policy, right, for everybody.
That's U.S. Senate hopeful Mark Paquita. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. Definitely wanted to get you on. We are offering equal time to just about everybody involved in this race for Rob Portman's seat. We wish you nothing but the best, and we will talk to you soon down the road. All right, my friend?
Carmen, thanks a lot, and go Brandon.